Gary, how are we doing, man?
So I have a daughter that's 22 years old. She is homeless. She lives in her car. She's addicted to methamphetamine. She has 2 children that were taken from her about 6 or 7 months ago. Recently learned that she's been using drugs since she was 14. In 2016, her mother, my wife of 26 years, passed away from cancer.
Oh, man, I'm sorry.
And for the next 2 years, I tried, to do everything I could to help, my daughter, including, getting her into counseling, paying for her rent, her utilities. I bought her a car, paid her bills, because I wanted her, to get on her feet. After 2 years, nothing worked. I felt like the poster child of the enabling parent. So, the last 2 years, she's really just gone downhill. In the last couple weeks, received a phone call from her where she sounds like she is ready to accept responsibility. She obviously is struggling, and she's talking about wanting to get into rehab. Okay. And the first thing that came to my mind was, what is the right amount of help? What I don't want to do is get back in this enabling, cycle where I am preventing or keeping her or giving her an excuse why not to, move forward with rehabilitation. So what's the right amount? What's too much? I've obviously struggled with, setting proper boundaries, in the past. And of course, telling her no is difficult for me. I think I'm a fixer by nature, but I can tell you that this is beyond my ability, to help.
So, dude, one, as the father of a daughter, I can't think of a more gnarly, awful place to be than where you are. And just want to acknowledge straight up, that sucks, that's hard, and that is the depth of hell for a parent, and I hate that for you. I also cannot put my head, I've sat with countless people in this situation. I can't put my head around somebody. I can't put my head around a situation where I would have to come home and my wife has passed away. And so you're dealing with trauma on top of trauma. And I want to start all of this call by letting you know, you've mentioned a couple of times in this call about how you're not doing things right. And you've mentioned a couple of times in this call that you're kind of taking ownership for your daughter's choices and her decisions. And I want you to be graceful to Gary, okay?
Yes.
You're owning a lot of this. And right, wrong, or indifferent, your daughter's made some decisions and some choices that you've got to let go of for a season, okay? If one day you are in a place where she's well and you're well and y'all want to go get a therapist together and go spelunking, I wouldn't recommend that, but you can. At this point, I want everything in your life to be about moving forward. You've done the best you can with the tools you had because you love your daughter more than life itself, right? Is that fair?
That's very true.
Okay. So the rest of it is cinder blocks that you are carrying around every day, and all that does is weigh you down at work, that weighs you down in your relationships, and more importantly, it doesn't fully let you connect with your daughter, okay? And so put that stuff down, and then I want to commend you, man. Most parents don't ever make it to the point where you are, which is, I've got somebody who's hurting. I'm just going to keep dumping money and resources and heart and soul and mind and all this stuff into a giant black hole. And you've said, I can't keep doing that. I'm causing more harm. I'm causing myself harm. And I'm not doing the good that I want to be doing. What do I do next? So, dude, high five to you, man. It's a hard place to be. So tell me about this phone call you got. She says, "I'm ready," and something in her voice. If for those of you listening, if you've ever dealt with somebody who struggles with methamphetamine, it's just evil in its purest form. It takes everything from you. It takes your soul from you. It takes all of your ethics and morals and character. It takes everything you have from you. And loving somebody who's caught up in meth is almost like loving somebody with Alzheimer's. They're a shell of themselves, and that you want so badly to believe that they're still there, and they're not. They're a ghost. And so, Gary, it matters a lot to me that you, as her dad, got a call, and suddenly you feel that bell ringing for the first time in a long time. What was it about that call that reconnected you to?
So she said that she was stressed out. Mm-hmm. She said that she knew that she did it to herself. She said that, she was going into trying to get into a shelter at the time, and this was a couple weeks ago, that she was saying that, she had a flat tire, she didn't have any gas, she hadn't eaten, that she's tired, and she travels from hotel parking lot to hotel parking lot to get their Wi-Fi so she can, communicate on the internet or make phone calls. She said she didn't know how she got like this. She said she was disgusted with herself.
Okay.
And I never heard that from her before. It was always the excuses and everybody else that is the problem. And the reason she was there is, she was the victim. And so this was good to hear that she was indicating that she was ready, to take some responsibility.
So when it comes to enabling, here's my thoughts about enabling are all over the place, and they're usually specific to a particular individual situation. Not always. We can draw some big, broad brushes, right? But often it's very human specific. It's just situational, right? But most of the time, that boundary-free living comes from exactly that, not having boundaries, not being intentional, not setting up who you want to be, who you want your kids to be, what you are going to value with your money, right? What you are going to be willing to invest in, what kind of life you're going to be willing to invest in. And so all that comes to, if I don't consider it enabling, if you decide I'm going to pay for rehab if that's where you're going to go, I would not be in favor of writing a methamphetamine addict who's lost their kids, right? And that's when you start realizing, okay, this is over you. Some people won't stop coming to family events, and some people will cuss you out via text message or send mean phone messages or whatever. But it's when you get into the darkness, right? When you let your kids go, when you are living in parking lots, right? That's when you know that you're out, right? And so when somebody turns around and says, I can't do this, I'm at the bottom and I need help, and then they look to you, I'm not going to ever give that person a penny, a dime. I'm not going to write them a check. But if you have the financial capability and you can help with rehab and you can pay a rehab facility direct, I don't see that as entitlement. I would also say a person who is a current meth addict or even early stages recovery of any kind of addiction, they're not in a place to make deals, if that makes sense. And so if you start putting stipulations on this, they're not going to be able to hear it. They'll say, yeah, sure, great, because they want to get to the next place. They're going to feel hurt and abandoned and abused if they violate these agreements that you come up when they're in the throes of addiction, and then you take your funding away. So I'd be clear and not do any negotiating. I would have a clear strategy on your part and say, here's what I'm willing to do. But it's going to have to be an inpatient thing. And I want you to know, just as a dad who loves his baby girl, detoxing and getting off meth is brutal. And I would expect some starts and stops. And I would also expect there to be some great success on the back end. Living into that optimism. So what do you think is too far when it comes to enabling your daughter?
Well, I think what is too far is what I started doing. I think with the best of intention was thinking that, that I could, just completely financially support her, and then she would, do the right thing, which, clearly she didn't.
Right.
So I do. I've since remarried, and I've had conversations with my wife about rehabilitation, and so we're certainly open to do whatever we need to do to be able to help my daughter. My struggle, as I said, was, what is the right amount? What was too much? I mean, even when she called me when she was in the hotel parking lot, I did. My oldest daughter, and I visited with her, and we had her a couple nights in a hotel. We brought her some food. I fixed her flat tire. I put gas in her car, and I gave her a food card to a local restaurant so she could get something to eat.
And see, those things to me are a dad who loves his daughter, right? And I think going into it with the heart understanding that is not going to solve her problem, but you do get that's as much for her as it is for you, right? Because I don't know that I could go to bed knowing that my daughter is sleeping in a hotel parking lot, right? And I know it's cool to talk tough about boundaries, and you just got to draw lines and all that. But I tell you what, man, if my daughter's sleeping in a hotel parking lot, I'm going to go get her, right? And that's hard when you're dealing with coke. That's hard when you're dealing with meth. That's hard when you're dealing with, when you're just pilled out. Those things are hard, right? And so buying a food card that she can only use in one place, they'll figure out ways to sell it, right? We all know that. But if that becomes a routine, at some point you got to draw that line, and they've got to make adult decisions. And it's hard. I tell you this. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that after I did those things that day, I walked away wondering if I made things worse, if I did too much, and was she going to, delay?
Sure.
And I didn't even want her to delay a day.
Right. Well, and that's where you can do some work on your end. You can go contact a local rehabilitation place, and you can get the information. You do not want to get information through your daughter, right? Because it's going to become at a very tilted angle. And you want to get that information from the place, get the cost, get all that, get with your insurance company. And then you and your other daughter go sit down and have a conversation and say, we want to go today. And we're willing to take you. I'm going to pay for it, or I'm going to help you pay for it. But we're going to go today. And that's the way to set that up. And if she chooses not to, that's when you say, then I'm going to try again in 30 days. And what I don't want anyone to ever do is give up on their kid. But there's a difference between supporting and giving up, right? And you're going to have to get somebody to walk alongside you because, dude, brother, you're still carrying some of this around. Is that fair?
It is.
Okay.
And I did have a conversation with a local rehab today.
Good.
They asked me to give my daughter their phone number and name to see if she would call them to, do some screening. So sure. I haven't heard back from her, so I don't know if she's done anything yet.
My guess is she won't. Right. My guess is that you're going to have to go pick her up or meet with her for a meal, or meet with her and set up an arrangement where y'all are going to meet and say you're going to take her. And again, I know that we've got to put this responsibility on addicts. If you've worked alongside addicts for a long time, you'll understand their ability to think rationally is different than ours. Their brain has poison pulsing through it. And so to expect them, I'm just going to wait until the XYZ, that sometimes works and sometimes is an irrational response. They can't. And so showing what at the root of addiction is a connection issue. They are using drugs to wallpaper over this lack of connection and this inability to hold somebody tight and to be held tightly. And so all that to say is, Gary, your heart's in the right place. I wouldn't wait for her to call. I'd set that up, and some places may not take her because of that. And I would go pick her up and say, today's going to be the day. And if she gets out of the car, then she gets out of the car. And then you're going to have a friend that you can go sit with and cry with, and then you can give it a shot in 30 days. And let her know, I'll be back in 30 days. I'm your dad. I'm not going to give up on you. I'm not going to keep putting gas in your car. I'm not going to keep paying for hotels. I'm not going to keep giving you money. That is enabling. But when you're ready, I'll drive you and drop you off. And because we've been blessed financially, I will help pay for it. And that's a gift, Brother Gary. So thank you so much for, thank you so much for your heart, man. And let me know how that conversation goes. And I would love to know if she does. Man, I would love to know if she goes plugs it in. That'd be great.